And then they sacked Brian Flores. What a raving fucking clown show. Welcome to the Snap UK podcast, your one-stop shop for all the news, views and opinions on the NFL. It's another mammoth podcast with 16 game reviews, playoff lineups, power rankings, head coach firings and Paul's bowel movements to discuss.
Hello.
With that in mind, let me introduce the crew. Gary, John, Jim and Paul, say hello.
Hello. Hello.
And allow me to throw the first game at you in this, the first ever Week 18 Snap UK podcast. First up, the AFC, a playoff ceiling overtime victory for the Raiders, 35-32 over the Chargers, double overtime, and they charged it up. They absolutely charged it up. This was quite something for me to wake up to at 5 o'clock in the morning and find it was still on.
Old Chargers, new coach, same Chargers.
So they moved to San Diego for the weekend.
It wasn't good. I think Phillip Rivers might have been playing somewhere. The Chargers' season-long problems with run defence basically cost them in the end. They took a timeout in overtime and gave the Raiders the opportunity to set up for the run.
They took a timeout, which was inexplainable anyway, and then the reason that they took the timeout was to get their best run defence on, after which Jacobs then pulled off,
nearly 10-yard run,
10-yard
set
run.
up the field goal.
Which also pissed off the Raiders. They're like, no, we're going for this now.
Yeah, bearing in mind a tie would have put both teams through it this time.
I reckon that would have been we're not going to put much effort into it. You're not going to put much effort into it. We're just going to go through. We're happy. Double overtime. I think we've done enough to show everyone that this is not contrived. This is not a contrived fix. So let's just
Didn't one of the players actually say before you took that time out, we were just going to take the time?
They basically have made it known that they were just going to run the clock out. And when the Chargers inexplicably played the timeout, the Raiders just thought, we've got nothing to lose. Was it a 52-yard field goal? It was quite a long way.
I don't think it that far. No, it would have been 52 yards
before. Before. So it was a 42-yard field goal. And he nailed it. He's only missed 2 kicks all season, I think, Carlson. So
he's been clutch this season.
Why give him the opportunity? It was a ridiculous thing to do. And the Chargers have been good in spurts over the season, but my word, when they're bad, they properly go back to Chargers form. It's like a curse that follows them around.
It is a curse.
I think most of us would agree that if they'd have made the playoffs, we'd say, yeah, you want to see Justin Herbert in the playoffs.
Well, I think when we come to our power ranking, some people put non-playoff teams into the top 14, and I can understand that, and the Chargers probably would be that team that I would put into the top 14, but they can't win the Super Bowl, so now they can't go into the top 14.
Raiders are the first team ever to make the playoffs with an interim head coach.
In the NFL era.
In the NFL era, pre-1950, it had been done.
1961 was the last time it happened.
Oh, was it? Who was it?
I don't know. I want to say Willie Lim for some reason.
Jim Green bringing half the facts. It's like when he ran that half marathon that time. Do you remember that? Half the effort.
More effort than the rest of us.
I'm not sure
both with stats and marathon.
I'm not sure the rest of us put together could run half a marathon in relay.
I mean, to be fair, I like the Raiders' plan of just the first opportunity to get rid of Gruden and good things happen.
It seems a bit that way. Rich Bisaccia, he's not one of the fancy candidates for the job, but should he be considered full-time for the job? Has he had enough? This is not like a 1 or 2 game stretch where no one knows what he's going to do because they've not got any film. He's been there more than half the year.
This is win 1 game and he's in, I reckon.
I think
you've got to consider him, haven't you?
I think you do, but they're in Vegas. They're looking for a big name, aren't they? I don't think so. I think Harbaugh is going to the Raiders. If I'm honest,
I'd agree. I don't think he'll get it, but I think you've got to give him an opportunity because he's done brilliantly. Let's face it, he has done brilliantly. Considering everything the Raiders have gone through this year, Gruden, Ruggs,
he's clearly more popular with the players than Gruden.
Yeah. If it goes wrong though, because we've seen this, haven't we, in football as well. If it goes wrong, Eddie Gray, John's in there because of Football Reference.
It's if he stays, it reminds me of Solskjaer.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Yeah,
he's a palate cleanser from Gruden and Ruggs and those incidents.
I don't want a palate cleanser from Solskjaer. That sounds disgusting.
I don't think he stays next year because what Gary says, he's not a big enough name, and actually, I don't think
Bisaccia is quite a big name.
I
see your point. It doesn't attract anybody necessarily.
I just think that's not where the Raiders are right now. And I think...
Do you know where they are in the playoffs as contenders.
Yeah, but the risk is, if you don't replace this interim head coach and next season's a complete washout, the ownership looks awful. If you go out and get an up-and-coming coach or someone from college or a proven NFL coach, a Flores, a Harbour, one of those kind of people, then if it still goes wrong, nobody's going to really question that decision-making too much.
No, that's very true.
And that's the thing. It's less risk for the ownership.
And they're still not going to win the fucking Super Bowl. Let it go.
No, they're contenders. I'll give him that.
They've made the playoffs. They are contenders.
They are literally contenders, John.
I just think of Gladiators every time we have this argument.
John Anderson.
Well, let's find out if they're ready.
They're not ready.
Very good. No, they may not be. Now, all of the records that we're going to give today are going to come with the caveat of having an additional game, but that's the way the world works. Back in the past, there were only 14 games.
I was
going to
say, I really hate that.
We're just going to get it out of the way now. But both of these teams, their starting quarterbacks passed the records for their respective teams, Herbert with the Chargers and Carr with the Raiders, for passing yards in a season because there was an additional game. But still, they are now the franchise holders. Herbert's in his second year.
Yeah, but the Chargers' last QB sucked.
But he didn't pass Philip Rivers. He passed Dan Fouts, who did not suck. Dan Fouts was really good.
Well, I retract my point, thank you.
I think Dan Fouts is in the Hall of Fame.
He is, yeah.
So suck it.
Without winning a Super Bowl.
Without winning a Super Bowl.
Correct.
Oh, God.
Precedent, baby.
The prophecy is coming true.
The other thing I'd say as well, though, on this is I think Derek Carr, it may well be more his leadership that's leading this dressing room as well.
I think he's allowed a bigger voice without Gruden there.
Exactly, and I think he was a great player when they got to the playoffs 5 years ago and never got to play.
Yeah.
And I think he is a good quarterback. He's definitely not someone you need to move on from him.
No.
Just build around him. He's not going to be too expensive. You can have a good franchise with Derek Carr. We've seen plenty of franchises do it. So
Completely agree. If you put Derek Carr into Denver, suddenly that Denver team is like competing and a genuine contender.
So that's far too sensible for Denver, though.
Well, yeah, it never happened anyway. So, yeah, I think when it comes to a head coach, I think, David Carr, he's got a lot of experience now. I think he should be consulted. Derek Carr, sorry, I said David. He should be consulted in terms of, like, who do you want? And, like, have a meeting with the potential head coaches. Because you're right, it's difficult to find a winning quarterback in this league. They've got one. They've had one for a few years. Get someone that can work with him and make this team even better.
He's a very underappreciated quarterback.
Look at, he's never really had that much talent to throw to either, has he? I mean, Hunter Renfro's got over 1,000 yards this season, but going into this year, none of us would have taken Hunter Renfro in the fantasy.
The fact that Waller's been injured, Ruggs is gone. The fact that this team has made it through from where they were in the middle of the season.
you can still get a signed Ruggs shirt for £35, as I shared earlier.
Well, that's
There's a long way in prison.
Slightly overpriced.
But that's only going to go down in value. It's like a reverse investment.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's going to be less and less of them, unless he's sending them out in postal correspondence.
Joey Bosa had 10 or more sacks for in a season for the fourth time in his career. That's impressive numbers.
That's why he gets about 35 million a year.
Yeah, guy's amazing, and he had a sack and a forced fumble 7 times this season, tied for the most games like that since 1999 when they started tracking that particular record.
But he can walk with his nose held up high.
He is seriously impressive. I would say the Chargers might be one of, if not the most disappointing team this season.
I think that's fair.
I think the Browns are going to be up there in that discussion, but for me, I thought the Chargers were nailed on to go quite a long way this year, and it's really disappointing. I didn't see this coming at all. I didn't for a second think the Raiders would really beat them, if I'm honest, but they did. John?
It's especially disappointing because it's the defence that's let them down, and they've brought in Staley,
who's a defensive mind, yeah.
And it has really let them down.
They've lost games which they should have won. I mean, games
like every Chargers team ever.
Yeah, exactly. Games against the Vikings, the Broncos, and they lost against the Texans. Like, you win one of those and you're in the playoffs.
Yeah,
and
doesn't come down to this game.
It's not good enough.
Nothing's changed for the Chargers, and that's a problem. So they're going to have to pull their socks up and go again. But we credit the Raiders, and we have to move on to the fact that as the Raiders rose to the occasion, so the Colts sank without a trace, losing 11-26 against the Jags. Jags securing the number 1 pick despite the win. We'll get to that in a little while. But we were discussing before we started the Wentz trade, or the Wentz trade, because John was talking about him, between the Colts and the Eagles. So the Eagles have been relieved of $108 million in cap space and received a first-round pick, which is going to be in the teens somewhere, and made the playoffs, which we'll get to. Well, we already knew they were in. And the Colts have taken on a fairly hefty salary and lost a first-round pick and gone nowhere.
I mean, you mentioned the Chargers being a disappointing team. I'm more disappointed in the Colts.
Yeah, I am as well. That's criminal that team is not there. You know, Jonathan Taylor. You know,
he finished as the leading rusher, did he? I assume.
Yeah.
Like, leading rusher.
Only by about 400 yards.
Yeah, I figured so. Right. Okay.
You know, you've got two decent wide receivers, if not three. You've got T.Y., Pascal, Pittman.
That's the only area I'd see a weakness with that team.
Yeah,
They're okay.
I'd say they're
I think
okay.
Pittman's all right. I think it's the quarterback. If you put, again, Carr with those, like T.Y.'s done okay through the year. None of them are like stellar, but they're okay with a running back like that. The defense is awesome.
The offensive line is brilliant as well.
Like, what is Wentz doing?
It wasn't this weekend, but
They
generally
got
it's really
owned
good.
this weekend, and the team didn't look prepared. Generally, I like Frank Reich. I think he's one of the better coaches. I think they got it wrong. They're clearly cursed in Jacksonville. They haven't won in the last...
It was 2014 was the last time they won it.
And they play there twice a year, or once a year, so, you know.
It felt very much like they turned up expecting to win.
Yeah.
I mean, the Jags is an utter dumpster fire, and seeing Tony Khan celebrate hurt me.
You know what it's like, though,
core.
in divisional games, you know, it's like the Rams-Niners.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's true.
Like, you just get these weird matchups. I think we forget about divisional games and rivalries, and they play each other more often, don't they, as well?
I honestly think the Colts just thought, look, the Jags want to be the number one pick. They're not even going to bother showing up. We're going to walk this. Jags will make a business decision. And I think, had Urban Meyer been there, that's probably what you'd have seen.
I think if Urban Meyer had been there, it just wouldn't have been a problem anyway.
Fine. But I agree. But I think they turned up and they were told, we had the number one pick. He's here on the pitch. We've got to try and win with him.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, the Jags are... Everyone on that Jags team, maybe bar Lawrence, is playing for their future, aren't they? Because the new coach is going to come in and going to look at them and go, right, who do I want to keep? Who do I want to get rid of?
It's not the worst squad. And we'll get to these head coaching
yeah.
positions afterwards. Can we... Before we move on from Trevor Lawrence, this was easily his best game of the season.
Hands
down.
Yeah.
No, the catching of the overhead snap that he then spun round, ran away from the defender and scored a touchdown.
We were chatting, I think it was last week, we were chatting about throwing the ball on the run and how some quarterbacks are good. He demonstrated he's got that in his
He looked like he was a
number one pick.
That I haven't seen him do that since in college, and he suddenly just looked like, okay, I'm a star, I can do this. Now, it's one game, and we know the Colts didn't really show up, but at least it was there, because we have been saying all season, he's a number one pick, but he's not even flashed anything.
It should give him confidence going into next year. It's like, I can do this at this level.
And it should also give whoever they appoint confidence in that he can play.
Well,
this is the thing.
I don't think they're going to move away from Trevor Lawrence for
at
least 2 years, are they? You know, and I don't see it happening, really. I think, you know, there's nothing to say Trevor Lawrence is going to be a bust. I don't think any of us have been saying that. I think it's just about whether he can reach those heights. You know, I think, you know, like Belichick said last week, you know, he might be a star, but, you know, I think he should be able to play in the NFL.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where I'm at the moment. And I think most head coaches will come in and believe that they can get the best out of him. Of course they will. It's a year in. You know?
Well, yeah, that's it.
I did hear a rumour of Bill O'Brien in the Jags.
Yes, they've interviewed him, apparently.
I don't think that would be terrible. Like, he was a good
look what
head
he did
coach.
with the Texans before he let the power go to his head. The problem at the Jags is, or the problem for other people is Trent Baalke. People don't want to play for Trent Baalke.
Problem with the fans is
But
Trent Baalke.
Bill O'Brien needs a GM, because when he became GM at the Texans, it fell apart fucking quick. And so if they're saying we're definitely keeping Trent Baalke, then Bill O'Brien's probably not a bad shout, because he cannot be trusted to be a GM. We know this.
Give everything away.
But he knows the division. He took a franchise that had been terrible for years and turned them into a yearly playoff contender with Brian Hoyer and TJ Yates and Ryan Mallett. Like, imagine what he could do with Trevor Lawrence. I have no problem with it. I think as much as we laughed at him the last time, he got out of his depth, but you put him back to being a head coach, no problem for me. Darius Leonard. He's one of two players since 2000 with 500 plus tackles and 10 interceptions over his first 4 seasons.
He's one of the best defensive players in the league.
All I want to know is who's the other one.
Since when, sorry?
Since 2000.
Oh, bloody hell. Ray Lewis?
No, only retired in the last couple of years.
Ed Reed.
Retired because of
Keekhley.
concussion. Luke Keekhley, absolutely.
Oh, God, yeah, he was phenomenal.
I mean, I don't want to...
Literally
I
says it
don't want
here
to pull
in
back
the
the curtain, but it is in your script. Yeah. Just, I
I
don't
don't
know.
know that I got that right without reading Griff's notes.
Yeah, because
I
you
never
don't read
the
them.
notes.
Yeah, no, but nobody else bothered either. I'm assuming the failure to make the playoff kills all hope of the Jonathan Taylor MVP shout.
He's a running back. Can't happen.
Yeah, exactly.
I think Cup was ahead of him, yeah.
But
Okay.
even Cup's not going to win it.
Fair enough. And Carson Wentz, since 2016, 66 fumbles, which is leading the NFL by quite a margin.
He's a pussy.
No, wait.
I didn't want to say it, but
There's still another year of Daniel Jones to come.
Is there?
No, there's not.
I'm not sure there is.
Yeah, but he's going to, considering our other option is Jake from a racism scandal.
It's not though, is it?
Who's looked terrible, but we'll get to them. Don't worry, they're going to get there. Okay, all of that meant, despite starting a stuffed pig at quarterback all season, the Pittsburgh Steelers stole into the playoffs courtesy of a 16-13 win over the Ravens. And having that all-important tie in their back pocket helped. The Steelers and Mike Tomlin, Gary did point this out, he's waving his arms, but Mike Tomlin has played this terrible team to perfection and got every ounce out of this offense and relied on the defense, and it is the perfect way to use this.
They brought in some really good pieces as well. Now, the Steelers not having a first-round pick was like insane. But what they did for Minka Fitzpatrick won them this game with a tackle late on, or a pass breakup late on. I remember, and I listen back because I do my research of listening to myself because I'm quite an arrogant person, right? I said the Ravens weren't going to make the playoffs 8 weeks ago. You all laughed at me.
We often laugh at you, Paul.
I mean, you also said the Giants would finish top of their division.
I just didn't.
And Lamar Jackson was playing football at that point.
Yeah, Lamar Jackson wasn't injured. Look,
But still a good prediction.
it's a great shout. You know what? The Ravens overcome a lot this season, but it's the first time they had lost 6 in a row under Harbaugh, and the first time since. I think I even wrote that down somewhere. But since 2007 was the last time they lost 6 in a row. Like this, they just couldn't overcome the injuries and things towards the end of the season. And we've sat here and said Huntley looks like a really good backup. And a couple of people have said maybe move on from Lamar and play. He didn't have it in this game. He could not work the magic. It was a terrible interception in the red zone. And you just get the feeling Lamar Jackson doesn't do that.
They had nothing to play for, though, did they?
They could have got into the playoffs.
If they'd have won and everything else had fallen their way.
It was unlikely. It was unlikely. I think
It's unlikely the Steelers would get there as well, to be fair.
it was unlikely, but that tie was always there in the back. I must have said it about
you
10
did,
times.
yeah.
'Cause I just had this feeling that it was going to, when it happened, it was just one of random things was going to come back, and just get them in. Like, I don't know how they do it. The bigger question for Pittsburgh is, because we don't think they're going to go far. They're as much of a contender as the Raiders, if not less.
Yeah.
Which pains me to say that to you. But where do they go from this? Like, how do you move forward? Like, which quarterback are you going to go and get? Because is it Jimmy G?
I think that would be an upgrade. You give Mike Tomlin anything he wants and you say to him, we aren't sacking you for at least another 5 years. If you need to go through 2 quarterbacks or 3 quarterbacks to find a replacement, that's what you do. But I would be willing to bet, and I've not looked this up, that Ben Roethlisberger is one of the worst 6 or 7 quarterbacks this season in terms of production. He's been terrible. So you can upgrade fairly easily, and you just give Mike Tomlin a lifetime contract. He has never had a losing season at the Steelers, still.
I mean, to be fair, he's had a thumb at quarterback.
Big Ben, second most game-winning drives ever, and second most winning seasons ever.
Yeah, but he's had some very good players around him.
of course he
had
has.
12 seasons in the playoffs, hasn't he? He ended the regular season on 22 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 3,740 passing yards.
Actually, not as bad as I thought then. I thought there'd been more interceptions than that.
86.8, which is not terrible.
No. So he's not. Fair to say he's not an elevator, but not the reason.
I think he hasn't made as many mistakes as some quarterbacks, but at the same time, he doesn't make any massive kind of game-winning plays.
Just become a fat game manager.
Yeah, exactly.
He just doesn't play like Ben anymore. He's fine for what they need, which is to throw it 6 yards to Deontay Johnson and whether
He's been helped out seriously by having Najee Harris turn in one of the best rookie running back seasons we've seen.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
And that was great drafting. That was exactly what they needed and exactly the player they needed.
Proving that the Steelers' D is key. They're 8-0-1 when conceding fewer than 24 points this season, which is just massive.
And we've done personal records. We mentioned TJ Watt
Not breaking the sack record.
because they turned his sack into a forced fumble and then gave one.
Apparently, they're reviewing that.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
Because one of he had a half sack with Cam
Hayward,
and that got turned because that got overturned
On a penalty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and individual records, I don't really care and everything else, but actually because he only played 15 games.
It would have been impressive. The best thing about it is it turns out he thought he had broken the record because
No
they
one told him.
didn't tell him.
No one told him.
They didn't tell him in the game that it wasn't a sack.
And then the next play, he got kicked in the nuts.
He did indeed get kicked in the nuts. And I did share with you the reason why that happened after he punched Sam Darnold in the balls last year. So it's karma, baby, karma. But I don't know whether they're going to... I don't know...
Didn't his brother punch Zach Wilson in the balls this week?
Oh, really?
Don't know.
I mean, I'd
Oh,
have
was
to
that
check.
what was the video you shared? Was that last
It was
year?
TJ Watt
was it?
from last year.
I just thought it was just a Watt punching Zach Wilson. I just saw.
I'd punch Zach Wilson, though.
Yeah.
Glad
Is that
you
a
were...
new euphemism or something?
So not only does he not read my script, he doesn't watch my videos either. I don't know why.
I watched the
fucking
video.
bothered.
I just didn't read the message.
There's a script.
The Ravens ultimately this year just unlucky though, right? With the injuries, just
still,
unlucky.
Still a good franchise, yeah.
Harbaugh, it's a bit
Safe.
like Tomlin. You just let them get on with it. Like your franchise is in good hands.
I think that there's three coaches that I think have absolutely coached out their skin this year. John Harbaugh, Mike Tomlin, two of them, and Sean Payton, the other one. Like considering everything that those three coaches have gone through, to be in the playoffs or on the edge of the playoffs, that's incredible considering what they've got on the roster.
Belichick deserves credit as well.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
know he's evil.
I mean, there are loads of coaches that deserve credit.
Like
this
giving
year.
Palpatine credit. I mean, it was an impressive Death Star.
I mean, I didn't like the enslavement, but the buses did run on time.
Yeah.
So
There are loads of coaches who've done well this year, but I think those three, for what they've had to coach in terms of their roster.
Let's talk about another coach who's done well without necessarily the credit. The Titans secured the number one seed in the AFC with a hard-fought 28-25 win over Houston. This is a Titans team that hasn't had Derrick Henry since week 10. And, you know, Vrabel doesn't get much credit, but they had a bumpy 3 or 4 weeks, and then they've been brilliant ever since.
And for me, he is coach of the year. They've had 91 players used throughout this year, which is the most, would you believe, in a season for a single team. 91. That's almost 2 rosters worth of players.
well, to be fair, Adrian Peterson has played for every team this season, so he's one of them.
Their last 12-win season, I think, was 2008. So,
Jesus.
I think this has been really good for the Tetons.
Yeah.
I think Henry's going to be fresh. They've got the bye week now as well.
Julio Jones finally scored for
Julio
them.
scored. AJ Brown has looked good since he's come back. I think it's just been, you know, the fact they've managed to get the number one seed without that. They found Donta Foreman as a somebody.
If
that
they
just
don't
take
have
the
to just rely on Henry
pressure
when he
off
comes
Derrick
back,
Henry.
brilliant. Yeah.
I think it's been good that they've had to find another way to win.
And they get the extra week with that number one
that's
seed.
what I mean,
That's,
yeah.
that's incredible.
I think that's why a lot of the starters play, because they
Yeah.
knew how important that extra week was going to be to get Derrick Henry back fit and ready for the playoffs.
That's going to be an angry Derrick Henry as well.
Yeah.
He's
gonna be-
always an angry Derrick Henry. When is he not an angry Derrick Henry?
And he can manage a game properly as well. I think that's going to be really interesting.
Well, considering how uninspired I thought it was when they brought Tannehill in, it's been a revelation there.
It's nuts, isn't it? Griff actually showed me a video, because I do watch the videos he shared.
Not that one.
No, not that one.
Oh, okay.
Looking back to
The one about the manatee.
Yeah.
Paul's got an interesting manatee fact. Do you want to share it on the podcast, Paul?
No.
No, I don't think you do. No, go on.
Anyway, a video about, was it the 2010 draft, and looking back at the quarterbacks
Yes.
of the 2010 draft, Luck, RG3, and then Tannehill who went third to the Dolphins. And I think it's a perfect example of how the situation of where you are really dictates what you're going to be like in a player. He was average at best at the Dolphins, and now suddenly he's a top 10 quarterback.
Yeah, because situation is everything. To demonstrate that, though, bearing in mind that the franchise in its two guises, has technically three guises, has been going since 1960. Ryan Tannehill has joined Hall of Famer Warren Moon as the only players in franchise history with 3,500 passing yards in consecutive seasons. Warren Moon did it 3 times. Now, they've had something to the order of 21 starting quarterbacks in that time.
It's pretty poor in the era we've been in.
Yeah.
Because 3,500 isn't, that's good,
No,
but it's
yeah,
not
it's
stellar.
just over average. Bro.
They did have a lot of Steve McNair years where a lot of that was based on a running game.
Yeah, they did. And they had Kerry Collins and Vince Young. But they've had players, but they've also had some terrible players. Tannehill, whilst, Jim's probably right, he's maybe just in the top 10. He's not a stellar quarterback, but he allows them to be a winning franchise, something they just didn't have.
He's a lot fucking better than Jake Locker.
You're a lot better.
I was just
than
trying
Jake
to think
Locker.
who it was.
Yeah, Jake Locker.
Yeah.
Oh my word, that was some rough times. Poor Jake.
Mariota as well.
Davis Mills rookie passing yards record for the Texans. That surprised me. Deshaun Watson, anyone? No.
Yeah, he didn't play the full season.
Okay.
He
got
runs a
injured,
lot as well.
Didn't he get injured halfway through his debut season as well?
Oh, maybe. I think, and they've only been going since 2001, but we're still talking 20 years worth of players. I figured Davis Mills was not the most likely candidate, but clearly I was wrong. I suppose David Carr spent that first season on his arse.
On his arse, yeah.
So it's difficult to throw forward when you're facing upwards.
But we've said it every week, haven't we? Davis Mills now affords the
He
Texans
will be
the luxury
there.
of
He
not
will be
having
their
to pick a quarterback.
Yeah, he will be their quarterback next year. He was really good in this game as well. He hasn't been sacked yet, but Cully is one and done, right? It sounds awfully like he's one and done.
I feel so sorry for him because that's a. I know we talk like dumpster fires and
it's a terrible franchise.
shitting the bed and everything else. That is a horrendous amount of luck with that team.
Yeah,
that's an awful situation to come into, and they've been
competitive.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think he should get
No, I don't think he should.
No, I don't
all.
think he should.
At all.
No.
The problems aren't of his making. He didn't give away all of the draft capital. He didn't, make sure there was a sexual predator on the roster. He didn't do any of these things.
No, I agree. He's not responsible for the Deshaun Watson
So with
situation.
the hand he got played, he's done pretty well.
Probably shouldn't talk about playing with hands. It's not going to be good.
I mean, apparently they're mooting it because the GM has someone already in mind, which is the thing that worries you, isn't it? Because it's Texans planning.
So who's that from the Patriots then?
Yeah. Well, McDaniel, I assume. Who else would it be?
Jared Mayo.
Oh, maybe. They can have him, that's fine. He's the outside linebackers coach.
Who's the Lions guy?
Jim Caldwell.
No.
Dan Campbell.
No, Patricia.
Matt Patricia.
Matt Patricia. Let's
They can have
bring
Matt
the
Patricia.
dumpster fire in.
That sounds like Texans planning.
In a world where a coach who wanted Deshaun Watson on his roster is now available, do the Texans go, right, let's hire that guy and try and keep our star quarterback and even trade Davis Mills for capital? Is it something that happens? I don't think so. But
John, timestamp this part of the podcast. There is not a hope in hell that Deshaun Watson plays ever. They could bring in Deshaun Watson's dad as coach and 18 masseuses, and he is not playing for the
do you
Texans.
at least investigate it?
No,
But that legal situation is tighter than a manatee's vagina, I've heard. Right?
Shall I timestamp that?
Yeah, I would. Yeah. I mean, how do you know? I don't want to know.
Move on.
Yeah, moving on. Right. The Kansas City Chiefs beat the Broncos 28-24, unable to secure the top seed, but doing enough to evict Vic Fangio from his seat.
We can't draft a quarterback. We keep bringing these guys who are terrible. I don't know, let's sack the head coach.
He's had 3 seasons, no playoff appearances. As Paul rightly pointed out, they haven't made the playoffs since they won it.
3 losing seasons as
Yeah,
well.
3 losing seasons. Vic Fangio will be somebody's defensive coordinator next year because they've been good.
Easily.
Yeah.
But I think he's had a fair shake, apart from the fact they've never had a quarterback for him. And he pretty much said that after the game the other day. Pretty much was like, if you give me a quarterback, I'd win. He threw Drew Lock under several buses, basically, and just continued to plough over the top of him.
I think if Teddy had stayed fit all season, they might have got in.
I think they had a much
Raiders.
better chance of. Yeah, I think they did. I think Teddy was doing enough, but
How many games did he miss? 5 in the end?
4 or 5, over the course of the
That's
season. I
quite
think
a
Drew
bit.
Lock started 5 games. Yeah.
So that's a team that had a bit of bad luck because Jerry Jeudy was out for a while, wasn't he?
They had lots of things go against them.
Every team has injuries, though, don't they?
When your wideout room is Jerry Jeudy, who got injured, Cortland Sutton coming back from injury,
Tim Patrick.
Noah Fant.
And Tim
The
Patrick's
offense has just been disappointing.
The running game's brilliant, and the offensive line's good. The wide receiver room is good, and yeah, even with injuries, I still think it's quite good. Tim Patrick, I really rate. He's had a great year. Again, like if you put a decent quarterback into this team, it's a genuine contender. The defense is also good. So yeah, it's not all on Vic Fangio, is it? But
I think Drew Lock had 5 starts, 787 yards passing, but only 2 touchdowns. He only had 2 interceptions, but only 2
Honestly,
touchdowns.
I had Sutton in fantasy and Noah Fant. It was a waste of time.
But those stats are comparable to, say, Bridgewater. I don't think Bridgewater, again, we've said it a lot, he's a game manager. And you need slightly more than just that.
I think you need someone who can elevate if you're, you need a Derek Carr, basically, who elevates players around him. But
ideally, you need a Peyton Manning. you need that sort of player. Somebody coming. Well, you don't get elite quarterbacks for free. I get that.
Teddy went 18 touchdowns and 7 picks, so he was considerably better than Drew Lock. That's more than twice as many touchdowns to picks. Drew Lock is going 1 for 1. That's not good, and not even doing. He had 5 starts to do that.
I'm sure if Teddy played all season, they'd have just crept in.
I think Gary's probably closer to being right. I really do.
Drew Lock isn't very good, isn't news.
No, the fact that they can't draft a quarterback isn't news, and it hasn't changed since Elway moved upstairs. We've all been assuming they're going to get Aaron Rodgers. That is looking less and less likely.
Can't see it now.
So what do they do now?
This is the problem with the draft system, though. It's because if you are middle of the road, it's very hard, unless you go after free agency and give up your picks, it's very hard to move forward. So you have to have quite a dynamic franchise to do that.
100% agree with you there. They could have picked Justin Fields in the last draft. Now they've gone through, they've pretty much got everything on that team. I think we can all agree that roster, bar the quarterback room, is really good.
Yeah.
Now, you can't do it this year because I don't think there are quarterbacks that are worth this, but why not trade 3 first-round picks for a star quarterback in the future?
They don't even need a star quarterback. If you guys trade Jimmy G, the Broncos should be banging the door down because he would be a massive upgrade. He would.
Yeah, I agree.
Since Noah Fant was drafted in 2019, so 3 years, he's caught passes from 7 different quarterbacks.
Do you want to name them?
Well, Teddy,
Awesome.
Locke,
Flacco,
Simeon,
Keenum,
Rippin.
Case Keenum, yeah.
Case Keenum.
Keenum's there, yeah.
The guy who Kendall Hilton. Kendall Hilton.
And yeah, well.
And somebody else who was terrible.
But I think as well, Philip Lindsay had a part also took snaps under centre as well. But yeah,
oh wow.
But yeah, Noah Fant has caught
Kendall.
They're all terrible. Bridgewater. Okay, I agree.
And there's Jim Kelly's.
And Fangio had nothing to do with any of them.
Chad Kelly.
Fangio. Yeah. It's a shame that the GM.
Gary's like, the fuck is Chad Kelly?
To be fair, the GM's only been in that job for a year, so you can't. It's on Elway, not. Yeah. I mean, you got to give George Patton a chance to draft a quarterback or bring in a quarterback.
I just expect him to be in
General Patton,
full military regalia.
Turns up on a tank
every time.
Absolutely. This game would have been a win for the Broncos if Melvin Gordon hadn't fumbled the ball away on the goal line. Effectively, they'd have won. They'd have won this game.
Fumbled it away or
great hit.
It was a great hit. But.
I mean, you can put that all on Melvin Gordon. Yeah, okay, he lost the ball, but...
We lost in week 1 because Damian Harris fumbled the ball. It was a great hit, but he fumbled the ball. And it is a Melvin Gordon problem. He does fumble the ball.
He also scores touchdowns.
He does.
Do you know when Chad Kelly was released from the Broncos?
When?
Didn't he break into someone's house?
Yeah.
After Von Miller's Halloween party.
Yeah.
He left the house and trespassed on an old couple's place of residence.
Yes.
Yeah, it wasn't an ideal look for a Hall of Fame quarterback's grandson or whatever he is, nephew.
Amazing.
Yeah. Right, we should stop talking about the Broncos, who are terrible, and talk about the fact that Mahomes is now 9-0 versus the Broncos and has 12 or more wins in 4 successive seasons for the Chiefs. He had a bit of a slump to start. It was a slow start for him, but they're on fire and they will be one of the favourites now. They must be.
Not how you start, it's how you finish.
Tyreek and Kelsey are the second most the teammates combined for the second most yards over a 4-season span since it's two guys from the Niners, back Jerry Rice and somebody else. I can't think who the other guy was, but
Owens?
possibly. I thought it was a running back. Who was running back then?
Roger Craig?
Can't remember. Anyway, I'm doing my half-hearted research again.
I mean, you moaned at me for doing that.
I know. That's because you're supposed to be the facts guy now.
Do a half marathon.
I couldn't.
I
have to stop halfway up the stairs.
I have got a Kansas-based fact for you.
Go on.
That was their 13th straight road win against AFC West opposition. They've not lost in the division away since October 19th, 2017.
Good Lord.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, they've been impressive. There was no doubt they would turn it around this season. I didn't think they'd necessarily go in as the second seed. I thought they'd lost some more ground than that, but the defence has shored itself up.
Reminds me so much of the Bucks last year.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's exactly how it feels. It just feels like they're just... I think they want their title back.
Yeah.
If I'm honest, I think they knew that it was about being right at the right time.
Yep.
And I think they could be peaking just when they need to, which we know is important.
Well, it always is. It's about coming good at the right time. We've seen this in World Cups in football.
Rugby.
You know, it's always the way. Right. We will move on from them because there is so much to do. The Bengals opted to rest players over playing for position.
Don't have to talk about this game, do we?
That meant the Browns finished the season with a win, 21-16. Not a lot to talk about, if I'm honest. Jamar Chase sets the franchise record, not just rookie record, franchise record for receiving yards.
There's been some good wideouts there.
Yes, there has. Well, AJ Green.
Yeah.
Ocho Cinco. There you go. There's two. That'll do. That's some.
T. Higgins.
Yeah, but that's impressive. That's an impressive thing to do. You know, bear in mind Brandon Allen was playing in this game.
Sorry, I was trying to think of the wide receiver. I was actually trying to think of the wide receiver.
More
to pronounce his name.
More importantly, this game showed to me for the last 6 weeks, Case Keenum should have been the starter because Case Keenum looked everything that Baker Mayfield hasn't been for the last few weeks. Yeah, and if they'd have made that decision to rest Baker and wait for the playoffs, I think they'd have got in.
Do you know what? More and more, I just think that there's still a toxic issue.
It just feels that way.
It just feels like it's just bubbling up, ready to explode. You know, the defense is great. The defense is getting pissed at the offense. The offense are getting annoyed at the play calling. There's people that are worrying about their contracts. It just, despite all that talent, doesn't feel harmonious at all.
Do you think they're a little bit like the Jaguars a couple of years back? They had one good season, and suddenly it's like, it kind of boosts the ego. Like, yeah, we got into the playoffs. We beat the Steelers. Yeah, we're fucking amazing. And now they've come. This is like a real comeback down to earth.
I really hope not. I really hope it's not like that. But it even feels the same because do you remember that Jaguars team? They got to decide on Bortles, and this Browns team's got to decide on Baker. It sounds like they're bringing him back, and what they're going to end up is with a Kirk Cousins situation where you're franchise tagging. I don't have a problem with it. We should not take Baker on this season. He has been injured for half of the year, and I don't think it's fair to judge him. But I don't know why they didn't sit him. I can't get my head around it.
He's also very lucky. It's a very apparently poor quarterback draft, isn't it?
Yeah,
yes,
it is.
If you had to,
well, you're number 3.
Looking at if you'd have taken the draft class similar to the one he had, when he would not be.
It seems unlikely they'd be able to get draft.
I think they need to be in the discussion around the most disappointing teams this year as well.
Oh, 100%.
You know, Chargers, Colts, and the Browns. And I get that AFC has been competitive this year.
I think all of us had those 3 teams in the playoffs.
I would have had them at the start of the season.
AFC North, if you would have told us that we were just out here beginning of the season.
We said 3 teams were coming out.
We said 3 teams. But I don't think we would have ever said the Steelers would have come out.
No, I think the majority's consensus
or the Bengals.
Was the
Steelers and the Bengals. I think those were the 2 teams that I would have said would finish.
I think a few of us thought that the Ravens, Browns, and Steelers might sneak through.
Yeah.
I would have thought
the Bengals had no chance, and then the Bengals just exploded.
Yeah,
100%.
Like an angry tiger in search of meat.
Well, there is one thing to consider in the Zach Taylor era. If they're trailing after 3 quarters, they are 1-25, and that is a problem for the playoffs. And we'll get to the playoffs, I know, but they've done brilliantly this season because they've got it right at quarterback and wide receiver. They've done the thing that a lot of teams can't do. But he isn't everything. They're overcoming a lot of
their defense though has been much better this year compared to last year. Like, they've made some astute hires in Trey Hendrickson who gives them a genuine pass rush. So I think that's another big factor. I think they'll go into the draft and just build up their offensive line because Joe Burrow has still got hit the most or conceded the most sacks this year. So they've got the capital in terms of salary cap, but also draft capital to make this team even better.
If you go into like Bengals, Reddit, and Twitter,
who's doing that?
Who goes on Reddit?
I do because it's full of interesting facts.
Find out facts about manatee vaginas.
Is that the Washington football team's new name?
Yeah, the Washington manatee vaginas. Yeah.
But now there's a lot of belief that actually the Burrow and Jamar Chase connection has basically hidden the fact that's pretty much what's kept Zach Taylor in a job.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's not a good head coach. He's just got lucky. He's got two generational talents who are sort of
best mates.
If Burrow and Jamar Chase were on the Broncos would be a really good team.
Yeah,
I mean,
if Burrow and Chase were on any team, they'd be a good team.
You could say that about Rodgers.
I was going to say, you could say that about
of
Matt
course.
LaFleur and
But
Packers.
that's what John's point is. If you get the right combination, the coach matters less. That's his whole point. So,
It's like Tua and Waddle.
Yeah, we'll get to the Dolphins.
It's coming.
It is. Myles Garrett now has the third most sacks amongst number one overall picks since 1982. Do you want to know who he passed? Take a guess at the guy's name. Who is he relegated to fourth?
Don't know.
Can you give me the year he was drafted?
No, I can't. But I can tell you that his name is a nickname. He is known always as a nickname.
Okay, thank you.
The Bullet.
I don't know who it
His
is.
surname is Jones.
Pac-Man.
No.
Deacon Jones.
Too Tall Jones.
Oh, Ed Too Tall Jones.
Yeah, there you go. Too Tall Jones. So Myles Garrett, and he's only been playing for 5 years, and he's now got the third most sacks.
And the Browns are at risk of wasting him.
Yeah,
he is so good.
Yeah, he absolutely is. Right. The Buffalo Bills wrapped up a deserved AFC East title by wrecking the Jets 27-10, taking consecutive division titles for the first time in 30 years. Singletary's really starting to actually put the season together now. Like, the running game's going to matter in the playoffs, and again, we'll get to it, but that's going to be big for them.
That's a running game against the Jets.
Yeah.
Despite the fact
the Jets' run defense hadn't been
anything into this game.
Jets' run defense hadn't been terrible.
Was the game at MetLife?
Yeah.
No.
Was it in Buffalo?
Yeah.
Did it snow, or did I imagine that? Was that the week before? I'm sorry. I'm all over the place
Sorry,
with which week is which.
I knew the Jets were playing in the New York area, so I knew they'd suck.
Well, I was not surprised to learn this, but this is the worst streak currently in the NFL. The Jets have given up a sack in 52 straight games. That is ridiculous. I think us five as an O-line could go one of those 52 games
Didn't they
without giving up
draft
a sack.
Mickey Becton as well?
Isn't he injured?
He is.
Oh, he is injured.
But-
Because him and his dad could be great offensive line.
But Mickey Bector, you just pass rush the other way, don't you?
Oh, he can't move, yeah.
When you've got a revolving door the other side of the O-line.
Zach Wilson got sacked 8 times in this game.
Yeah,
Because
that's what I mean.
8 times? I didn't realise it was that bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't pay much attention to this game because it was
why would you?
pointless.
I bet his mum was pissed off.
But you couldn't tell because she's so fine. But it is 5 consecutive games without a pick from Zach Wilson. He is at least showing progress. If we're saying Trevor Lawrence is showing progress, Zach Wilson is showing
I think
progress.
Zach Wilson has shown he's got some talent.
I think he's shown he's worth keeping around. I wasn't sure at the start of the season.
When you look at how... Because I don't think Fields has done much either.
No.
He's not really had the opportunity.
Well, he's had more opportunity than Wilson.
Not as many games.
Yeah, but he's not been sacked 8 times in a game either.
That's true. 8 times in a game.
That's not much of an opportunity.
You might as well. You might as well take the snap and lay on the floor.
Go on, Zach. Get some experience. Here's a start for you. We're going to pound your face in over and over again. I wouldn't call that an opportunity.
He had more sacks
And
than
that's what
completed
she
passes. He had more sacks than completed passes.
You call that an opportunity?
I don't mean in this game. I mean he's played throughout the season, whereas Justin Fields has had 4, 5 starts, if that.
Doesn't have to spend the whole off-season on a treatment.
This is one game out of 17.
You get fewer sacks in some of Paul's specialist movies.
When you have Dalton and Foles in the QB room, you've got the opportunity to learn. When your other quarterback is Mike White.
Yeah.
Who played very well.
In one game. Stunner Mike White, absolutely.
The man with no film.
He did
rolls into town.
He did still have the best game by a Jets quarterback this season, but that's besides the point.
Great, fantastic! It's like being the best parked car in the car park. It's a nothing award.
10 touchdowns for Diggs this season. I thought Diggs had been quiet, but he made it to double-figure touchdowns again. And 4 playoff appearances in 5 years under McDermott, having been 4 times in the previous 22 years. He's taken advantage of what's happened with the Patriots, which is fine, but he's also proved himself to be a very good coach. I wasn't convinced after year 1.
He's a very good coach.
Yeah, but you're only playing the Patriots twice, aren't you? You
Yeah.
got to win the other
You've got to
game.
win everything else.
Josh Allen in the last 4 or 5 weeks has looked imperious.
A bit like Patrick Mahomes, who's come better. So has Josh Allen. He's proven everything with his legs, with his arms. It's going to be, I think they're really good in the playoffs. I wouldn't want to play them. Oh, I have to.
They've become reliably good, though, haven't they? They're no longer a surprise. Josh Allen is expected to be good each week.
Yes.
Diggs is expected to get touchdowns, expected to get yards.
Cole Beasley's contributing again. Not just to the rap scene.
I have to admit, I'm not a massive fan of divisional matchups in the playoffs. I find it a little dull. Watching the game for the 3rd time.
We'll cover it at the end, but yes, I wouldn't want to play them. All that meant the Patriots couldn't take the AFC title. Not that it matters. As they finished the season as it began, 24-33, getting shat on by the Finns, who promptly shat their own pants by firing Brian Flores. Oh, this is not a good move. What are you doing?
When the owner has to come out on Twitter to explain what he's done, that means you've made a mistake.
Yes, that's the first thing you have to do. You could take a straw poll of everybody that's watched the NFL in the last 2 years, and they will go, "What? Huh?"
I stay pretty glued to Twitter when it comes to Black Monday because you like to get the news. I don't think I saw one person say, "Oh yeah, no, I get that." Everyone's like, just,
They didn't make the playoffs, and apparently that was the bar. But they also, I mean, it's just madness. They hadn't had consecutive winning seasons since when, Gary?
19 years ago.
Yeah, 19 years since they've had consecutive winning seasons. He's got a winning record.
I thought he was 24-25.
No, you're wrong. He's not. He's 19 and whatever the other number is. 19 and 15, something like that. Got a winning record, I think. Oh, winning record over the last 2 years.
Yeah,
is what I was getting at. Sorry, yeah.
Three
seasons.
Yeah.
First season they were tanking.
They only won 5.
Yeah.
5 and 11 in the
You're
first
quite
season.
right. First season they were tanking. Over the last 2 years where they've not been tanking, he's 19 and 15 or something like that.
24-25 over
Yeah.
this season.
Over the 3 seasons, yeah. So
his first game, they lost 59-10 to the Ravens. Do you remember how bad that was? And then they lost 43-0, and then they lost 31-6.
we thought they were going 0-16.
Like
Tank for 2, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was tank for 2, and I remember in fantasy, everyone just checked who the Dolphins were playing. Yeah, I'll pick up that defense.
You don't do that now.
The Lions
conundrum. Jaguars conundrum this year.
Yeah, look, I think it's poor. It's really poor. They better have an idea of what they're doing. Otherwise, I think it's going to be really unpopular.
They've said it's not Harbaugh out of Michigan. If it's not, I'm not sure anyone else is
Nagy.
Imagine if it was.
I think they might just swap them.
There's sales of mustache wax coming with Jeff Fisher coming over the horizon.
Go on, Jeff.
It has to be suggested every time, doesn't it? Jeff Fisher in a
It should never
head coach
be
race.
suggested.
You're right, though. There has to be a plan, right?
Well, I'm not sure, but
There
you would
has to
think
be
so, to fire him that quickly. Now, it seems that he lost the power struggle with the GM, effectively, and he didn't want Tua. He feels a bit like Vic Fangio was saying, look what I've done with this team, give me a quarterback. And what they're saying is, you've got one, and we're not moving on from Tua. I think this is Tua's job secure.
Apparently, the Miami natives are still massive on Tua, and there is no desire from the fan base to move on from Tua.
I don't mind that. He's winning, but I think Brian
If the
Flores
coach doesn't want him.
Yeah, I think Brian Flores didn't want him, and that's the thing. Because don't forget, this is the coach that was basically saying Ryan Fitzpatrick is my starter, and I'm just going to throw Tua in to give him experience. And didn't commit to it. He didn't want to get rid of Fitzpatrick in the off season.
Yeah,
he wanted to keep
wouldn't
him.
deny the Watson rumours, would he?
No, but that's fine because if the guy is winning and your franchise has been dismal for years, and you've now found the guy, give him the ammunition. Don't just cut him off. This is a terrible look by a terrible franchise, and it's going to set them back, I think.
Oh, this is a terrible franchise. When he came in, the 2019 team, the offensive roster didn't have a single All-Pro or Pro Bowl player within it.
No.
Of course it fucking did.
59-10.
Like, the only decent player they had was Jarvis Landry, and he left.
Yeah. Bad Mink.
I mean, offensively.
The team's leading rusher was Fitzpatrick.
It really was. Yeah. It
was a bad team. I mean, all right, they started off the season really well. Then they got really shit. But they're 8-1 in the last 9 games.
They won 7 games on the spin after the trade deadline went past, and Tua knew what his job was.
Yeah, and I think Tua's going to be fine. Quick straw poll: who would you take for next season, Tua or Mac Jones? Just on any random franchise, but which one of the two are you taking?
That's a tough one.
I'd go for Mac Jones just purely because he's right-handed.
Yeah, it does disturb me, that left-handed throw. I don't know why, really.
I'd take Tua. If I had Belichick, I'd pick Mac Jones, but they don't.
Any random team. So most teams you think should take Tua.
I would take Mac Jones.
I think it's much of a muttness, but I think Tua's got a slightly higher ceiling.
This is what I was going to say. I think for once it's the Farrow factor. I think you can sit on the fence and it makes not a blind bit of difference. I think they're the same player.
I agree with Paul, and I was going to say exactly what Paul said. And because a lot of catchers do not like catching a ball thrown with a left hand, I would take the right-handed player. And he's taller.
And if
that sounds ridiculous.
If that's the one thing you can use to separate them, which is it's fine, it's a thing. But if that's the one thing, my point is valid that they are pretty much the same guy, just the mirror of the same guy.
Well, they came out of the same
system. And I think Tua on the Patriots would be in the playoffs.
Yeah, of course.
And so
he doesn't do a lot wrong.
No,
he doesn't.
They're just glorified game managers. Both.
I don't understand bringing in a top 5 pick and then completely deriding his confidence all season by we might bring in Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, it's crazy.
We might bring in an alleged offender. I don't get. There's never been any confidence. Whereas with Mac Jones, he's been our starter.
Yeah,
Newton's gone.
Really
he's
early.
our starter.
Yeah.
Really
from week 2.
Absolutely nailed on with the guy.
When was the last time the Dolphins swept the Patriots? Patriots. When was the last time they won both games in the season against the Patriots?
2008.
2 years ago.
No, you won 3. You won 3 in a row now. You won the last game last season and this 2, but you didn't win the first game last year, so it wasn't.
They always beat you in Miami.
Yeah, 2015.
Chad Pennington probably. I don't know. 2001.
I went 208.
Something stupid. Just give me the stat. Just give me the year.
John's not saying anything because he hasn't got a microphone near his face.
Just tell me the year.
2000.
Chad Pennington. I was right.
2000, and they've just sacked Brian Flores, who's like, I can't find any justification. I mean, I literally can't find anything.
Apparently, he was an intense presence.
Do you know what it
Which is what they need.
Do you know what it reminds me of? It's like having a player like Stuart Broad, who's taken David Warner's wicket 13 times and not picking him at the Gabba. It's almost as bad as that.
Do you know who else is an intense presence? Bill Belichick.
Yeah, it's very intense.
Mike Tomlin.
Do you know who isn't, but may have extended his career, is Duke Johnson, who scored again this week. Just like I thought he was gone, and he's actually been really good the last few weeks.
This week.
Yeah,
good at the Texans as well.
It was. What were his stats this week in the end? It was quite
25
something.
carries, 117 yards, and a touchdown.
I think he's got himself another 2 years.
He does that every game.
Absolutely. And we ought to point out that Waddle broke the all-time rookie receptions record from
Jarvis Landry.
Anquan Bolden.
Yeah, I did know it was Anquan Bolden.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We'll be back after this short break to discuss the NFC. And thanks for that further information about manatee vaginas. Now, the NFC. Only one place to start part 2. It was all or nothing for the 49ers. Win and in, lose and piss off. Well, San Francisco beat the Rams 27-24 with a highlight drive from Jimmy G as both teams progress. Where to start with this one?
The fact that Sean McVay has got to watch himself
celebrating in the end zone.
In the end zone, and then losing his 43-0 record at the end of it.
45-0. Yeah.
45-0 record.
When winning at half-time.
After looking like a dick. But they should have thrown a flag.
What, for him being in the end zone? Yeah, they should have done.
Taunting.
Yeah.
Just being a dick. There should be a rule for just being a dick.
I think that is the taunting rule.
And where is his little dude who used to shepherd him around?
He was not a good person. He might be with Deshaun Watson somewhere.
Oh,
he was not a good.
He was pretty touchy-feely with Sean McVay.
He was pretty hands-on with him.
I'm fairly sure that's him. He's not a good person. he's not been on the roster for a while.
Well, I'm not going to be talking for the next 5 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. So Stafford beats Kurt Schwarmer's passing yards and touchdowns for the Rams.
Yep.
So, again, Stafford's another one of these players who's been through some rough patches this season, but all in all, he's upgraded the team, even though they didn't win.
That's his problem.
The interceptions are
What's
the killer.
he thrown?
12?
I don't know.
I think he's got a couple of pick
Too
sixes.
many is the answer.
Yeah.
Too many.
I think it's
17.
17.
17.
41 touchdowns and 17.
41 touchdowns is a lot. But
Brilliant.
Yeah.
But if you
Yeah.
throw them at the
A
wrong
lot
time,
of those has come later in the season as well.
yeah,
Like,
that's poor. That is.
the last few games Stafford's had hasn't been brilliant, have they?
I want to. I'm looking.
don't.
The look on Paul's face,
Yeah,
he can't
don't.
read that out.
No.
I'm looking at something I want to discuss. Jimmy G's record with the Niners is 31-14 as a starter. 31-14. Why does everybody want to be so quick to get rid of him?
Because he should have played about 60 games.
Yeah, he has missed virtually 2 seasons.
So he's missed like
He's played
40
45 games.
but not a lot of some of those. So he's missed like 25, 30% of the games.
Okay.
You don't see top quality quarterbacks do that. Even bad quality quarterbacks like Eli Manning played like 300 games in a row or whatever.
Yeah.
So he's brittle, isn't he? That's the point.
He is brittle.
He is brittle. He's decent, and nobody has ever said he's not decent. I don't know that we move on from him next year. I don't know. I think there'll be plenty of takers if we do, but
I think we wait and see what happens to Trey Lance.
it doesn't cost us much next year to make that decision.
No.
I think the problem I have with Jimmy G is that there are some games, and I'll be honest with you, this is one that I thought this was going to be one of those games. There are some games where you just get the feeling they're going to lose.
He threw 2 interceptions in this game. He was not playing well. And then that final
that-
drive, that 90-yard drive.
The whole first half was an abomination. Like, again,
You were so upset.
I was really angry because we were playing so badly. And, fair play to Kyle Shanahan. He stuck with Jimmy G, and it worked in the second half. And suddenly
They ran the ball, though, didn't they?
they started running the ball a bit more.
Got Debo more involved.
Debo got more involved.
To be fair,
Debo is the difference.
And when you think Jimmy wasn't the spark, was he? Because
No, I don't-
Debo threw the touchdown that got us going again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Then the
defense was
Mitchell was playing well. The defense was playing well.
on
And then
fire.
when he needed to, he went full on Brady, didn't he?
That's exactly what I was going to say. He channeled the inner Brady in
Yeah.
those last few seconds.
It also helped that McVay's play calling was it was bad. He was so aggressive in that second half when they should have run the ball more and given the defense a rest. And then even the pick right at the end, Matt Stafford's pick, which ultimately cost them the game. You're first and 10. You don't need to be throwing a long ball like that on the 1st and 10.
And also on Jimmy's second interception, it should have been a penalty as well because he
Yeah,
got
it was-
spanked,
He got
in the
spanked
head.
in the head. He
Yeah,
did indeed.
if that was
Yeah.
Brady or Rodgers, that would have been a flag.
He obviously hasn't earned the the Brady place yet. But want to talk about Cooper Kupp for the 17th, 18th podcast running?
as well. Missed the record.
Yeah, it's receiving
For the
yards,
receiving
right?
yards,
Receiving
right?
yards, yeah.
But he did get
By about 20
He
yards.
got the
as
most
well.
receiving yards, the most receptions, and the most touchdowns. I think.
Great. The guy is crazy good. Debo Samuel and Cooper Kupp are 2 of the best players in the league.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, I won a couple of fantasy leagues with them on my team.
Yeah, I bet you did. You bastard.
I lost 1 though.
Today, right now, outside in your garden, which one of these 2 teams is better? Niners or Rams? Which one is better?
Rams.
What, versus each other?
Versus each other right now.
Well, clearly the Niners.
Niners.
We've won 6
Right.
in a row.
And
Just think Shanahan's got McVay's
and
number.
versus
I don't think it is that.
anyone else?
I think the Niners are a more physical team
Yeah.
on
Yep.
every aspect of the ball, which gets us more injuries. So I think if we're fit, the Niners are right there with them. But I think the Rams have more ways to win.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair.
I don't think I've given you the answer you
No.
want.
Well, if you're just looking to play anybody, like any random team,
I think the Rams still
I
have a
think
better
I think the
roster.
Rams are a better. Yeah, I think
Their
they're a
roster
better
is still
53.
better,
yeah,
yeah.
I think so as well. I really do.
If we're fit,
I do.
I think it's very
Their,
close.
I
their
do-
quarterback
I-
gets them into trouble, but he also is more likely to get them out of trouble with his arm. Jimmy G requires the play calling. I don't think Matt Stafford does. That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I think I think teams are going to be a little bit frightened about playing the 49ers, though. Just from
absolutely.
the way they're playing at the moment. The second half of the season, how they're running the ball, the physical nature, the defense. Like, I think they've got the 6th best passing defense in the league. And our cornerbacks aren't good. Like
they've got better.
They've got better, and I'm happy for Ambry Thomas because I think he started off badly and he's gradually getting better, and he's a rookie still. But our pass rush, and I've said this a couple of weeks, it's just incredibly good.
For me, the Niners
phenomenal.
are easily the best of the wildcard teams.
Yeah,
of the 6 wildcard teams, they are easily the best, and I think they've got legs in them in the playoffs. Deebo Samuel's score in the third quarter was his 8th rushing touchdown this season. No other wide receiver in Super Bowl era has more than how many rushing touchdowns?
5.
4. Well done, guys. Split the difference.
We were close.
4. Yeah, he makes your game tick.
He's we've lauded Cordell Patterson this year.
Yeah, but he's as important to you as Taylor is to the Colts or
Cup is to the
Cup
Rams.
is to the Rams.
Yeah.
He's everything,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't want to face him. Absolutely not. The NFC West has 3 teams making the postseason. Despite early season darlings, the Cardinals losing 38-30 against the Seahawks, they are into the playoffs. For the Seahawks, it's a wasted year. We've been talking about that. They have got a little bit better towards the end of the season. Maybe enough for Pete Carroll to keep his job, maybe enough for Russell Wilson to want to stay. But I think this is one of the franchises most likely to be in flux in the postseason.
I think they're both staying.
Yeah, you've said that for a while, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that there's anybody that's got enough to go and get Wilson out of Seattle. And Carroll, it's the first time he's missed the playoffs in, God knows how many years. First time they finished bottom of that division. I don't
Since
see
2011, yeah.
I just don't see him going anywhere.
This isn't a team that's making the playoffs well, though.
No.
Historically, this is a team that's kind of like spluttered into the playoffs.
I mean, they've lost 4 of their last 5 games.
You are talking about the toughest division in football.
Yeah.
I know.
For the last 10 years.
No,
I'm
He's
not talking about the Cardinals.
talking about the Seahawks. He's saying
I'm
they've
talking
not
about the
upgraded.
Seahawks over the last few years. They've never
They've spluttered.
The Seahawks have been on a downslide for
Since
5
they
years.
won the Super Bowl. Since they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is
2014.
This was bound to happen eventually.
Yeah.
I think the Cardinals are they had a very good start, and you lose DeAndre Hopkins, you're going to be a worse team.
Losing 4 of the final 5 isn't a good way to go into the playoffs.
Yeah, I think there has been a few tight games that they've started to lose, and there has been a few question marks about whether they are as clutch as they need to be heading into the playoffs.
They did score 30 points or more 9 times this season, which is quite impressive.
Yeah, look, they've got the talent to go and score a lot of points. You just don't know how the play calling gets affected by the pressure. How does the delivery get affected? And they've kind of done what I expected them to do, was make the playoffs after their good start. But would I be convinced that they're going to get to a Super Bowl?
No.
They might do if they put it all together, but I wouldn't be sat here expecting that right now.
It feels a little bit like the Browns. On paper, that roster's phenomenal. But you don't win the Super Bowl on paper, do you?
Well, you certainly don't. Kyler Murray, first player in NFL history with 70 or more passing touchdowns and 20 or more rushing touchdowns in their first 3 seasons. Way more than Cam or Lamar or any of these other dual-threat quarterbacks. Kyler is the best. And he's been a little bit lost this season in the fact that they've been up and down and everyone's looking at Cliff and DeAndre Hopkins. And let's not forget, this guy is a stud quarterback. He really is.
He missed a couple of games as well.
Yeah. And I think it took him longer to get over the injury than they wanted to admit as well. Who did they win with in the middle of the season? Colt McCoy.
Yeah.
Colt McCoy.
Yeah, they beat the Niners.
Now, somebody said to me...
The Giants fans just laugh at us.
Yeah, I know.
Somebody said to me at week 7...
What they do for Colt McCoy on their team.
They said,
No, we had Colt McCoy on our team.
somebody said to me at week 7, Mike, don't pick up Zach Ertz for your fantasy team. There's not enough targets to go around. Zach Ertz joins Hall of Famer Jackie Smith and Freddie Jones as the only tight ends in Arizona history with 50 or more receptions in a season.
Oh,
I didn't arrive there in week 7.
I didn't bank on Hopkins getting injured, did
Ertz
I?
is the first Arizona tight end with 500 or more receiving yards in a season since 2003. He was only traded there in week 7.
Name another Arizona tight end.
Jermaine Curse? No, what was his name?
Gresham.
Jermaine Gresham. There you go. That's my one.
I would have gone Ricky Seals-Jones.
Ricky Seals-Jones. Well, of course you would. And that, yeah, fair enough. I'm just saying.
It's been a
I
good
thought
track.
he would be good there. It's a good fit.
Yeah.
They needed a tight end. Russell Wilson surpassed Peyton Manning for the most quarterback wins in a player's first 10 seasons since 1950. How many?
Many.
How many wins?
10 years.
It's over 100.
Yeah, 113.
5.
Gary is so close, 112. Peyton Manning is now second. But that, again, is phenomenal. This is their worst season they've had since he's been there.
I would say that's actually a better result because they've had Peyton Manning's had 2 Hall of Fame wide receivers in his first 10 years, and Russell Wilson hasn't.
Earlier on, we were talking about...
but Russell Wilson had the best defence, one of the best defences of all time.
Yeah, that does help. Earlier on, we mentioned the resurgence of Duke Johnson. Now I want to talk about the resurgence of Rashard Penny, former first-round pick who's been injured for about 4 years.
Needs a contract.
Can it be resurgence if he wasn't surgent in the first place?
Yeah, that's fair. The re-emergence. Absolutely.
Is the word you're looking
Look
for.
at us learning to speak while having a podcast. 23 attempts for 190 yards and a touchdown. Like, they need a running back every year. They're crying out for a running back. That's why they drafted him.
It's almost like I'm just realising, wait a minute, we have a first-round running back here.
He has been injured so much. But I think he's earned himself at least a 1 year prove it and let him see if he can stay fit. Because if he can, he's clearly very good, which is why they wasted a first-round pick on him. But it's true.
Still saying he wasted it.
Yeah, because you shouldn't be drafting running backs in the first round. Sack one.
Because G. Harris has had a terrible year.
He's the outlier. Most of them are not worth it, or they're gone after 3 or 4 seasons.
I mean, that 2,000 scrimmage yards Saquon had was dreadful.
Elijah Mitchell was from like the 5th round. 6th round.
Adrian Peterson was from the
I think we said he had 4th round talent.
John's actually stood up.
Rashard Penny just screams Jets. He'll be at the Jets next year, or he'll be
at the Giants.
No, we've got his brother, thank you, and he's shit.
But yeah, he'll be 3rd choice at the Titans or something like that.
We've already got a shitty Penny.
That's not something. Sounds like something you've accidentally swallowed. No one wants that. All right, let's move on from that. The opposite of the Niners' joy was the sadness of the Saints, who took care of their business 30-20 against the flightless Falcons, but it was too little too late, and their season is done. Saints won 4 of their final 5, so the opposite of the Cardinals, and Sean Payton rightly touted as having done a great job with 4 different starting quarterbacks this season. Don't forget the Ian Book fiasco. When leading at halftime in their last 38 games, they are 37-1, so effectively the opposite of Zach Taylor. But a bit like we said with Harbaugh in the AFC, this was just a step too far for the Saints, who've been luckless with injuries. And Sean Payton's another one. You just tell him, have what you like, stay, please don't go and coach somewhere else, because this is an aberration. That's all it is.
Just put
he was winning games with Jameis Winston comfortably.
Put a good quarterback in that team, and suddenly they're back in the playoffs.
They were looking decent under Jameis.
Yeah,
they did. They did look.
They'd
be in the playoffs.
Yeah,
they'd be in the playoffs with Jameis.
No Michael Thomas.
Yep.
As well.
Yep.
Yep.
Kamara's missed
no
time.
Quarterback. It's all been on Kamara basically.
Yep.
Taysom Hill, they're still paying him too much money, but the defense is amazing.
The defense is brilliant.
Taysom Hill was doing really well in this game until he got injured. He actually was having his best game. I'm just saying. I know he's not.
We've defense.
We saw the Falcons' defense.
Well, we didn't. We didn't. It didn't turn up then either.
That tells us absolutely nothing.
Agreed. I'm just saying. Cam Jordan has 23 career sacks against the Falcons, which is the most by anybody against an NFC team, against one single team. He's been quietly brilliant on a very good defense this season. Because how old is he now?
The Falcons.
He's not old compared to us.
Very up and down though.
He's 32.
Yeah, he's been around for a while.
12 and a half sacks.
The Falcons have been very up and down. I've written here grade for Arthur Smith. I think he's done really well.
I would give him a high
I didn't expect him to get to the playoffs. They finished 7-9,
7-10.
7-10. Sorry, oh Jesus.
Oh, that's a 7-10 with his. I'm going to take away your entire defense.
Your best wide receiver.
Your
other wide receiver.
Your other wide receiver is going to disappear. Here's a good tight end. Go and win.
Yeah.
B minus.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. It's somewhere in the high C to early B range. And I think that's fine. I don't.
It's a passing grade for me.
Yeah, I agree as well. I think he's done fine, and I'm glad there's not been talk about like the Cully situation. Like, I don't think there's any need to move on from him.
I mean, to be fair though,
they've got good owners.
Yeah,
yes.
This is a good organisation. Like they're not quick to rush into firing coaches. Sometimes they're a little bit too slow. I think they should have got rid of Dan Quinn a year before they actually did.
Yeah, agreed.
I mean, to be fair, that coach is getting a blank check every month. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Shall I leave?
Puns and vaginas. That's all you've brought to the podcast today.
You loved it.
Right. The reigning Super Bowl champions, Tampa Bay, racked up their first ever 13-win season, whooping the Panthers 41-17. And I don't understand why Matt Rule's career is not in trouble.
He is.
No,
I think
he's not.
I don't think he is.
He should be.
They've
I
come out
agree.
and said that he's staying.
Yeah, but it's not like, come in next year, all is safe. It's basically, you've got one more year.
I think that's fair.
And, I think that they can blame the quarterback issues, but he has next year. Otherwise, he's gone. But
Before you move away from the microphone, Chip Kelly had a better record than Matt Rule after 2 years and was gone. Matt Rule's the same. It's not working. The college
Chip
things
Kelly
are not working.
Had a year too many.
Yeah.
Are we talking about Chip Kelly at the Eagles?
Yes.
Yeah, but it's not comparable.
Why?
He was pretty pony at the Niners as well.
Because the Panthers are just a decrepit franchise.
Are they?
I don't think
Are
they are.
they?
I don't think that bad. He's made some poor choices at who he wants at quarterback
Yeah.
and not making a system work for what they can do. And tried to shoehorn in a hero and then couldn't make that work either. I don't get it. Matt Rule really not great at all for me. And I don't understand why he's not being at least on the hot seat. I haven't heard it discussed at all.
I agree with John. I think he's definitely on the hot seat. And I think there's that's the entire reason that the owner, David Tepper, have come out and said he's got another year.
Right.
It's not...
They passed it off as Joe Brady's problem.
Yeah,
And I'm not sure it is.
I don't necessarily agree with that. But I do think if you're looking at this team, you've got to look at the GM as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the GM has brought in some pony for him. Like, you didn't trust Bridgewater. That's fine. That's their decision.
Yep.
Darnold was always a gamble. It's nothing more than a gamble. You don't have a first choice quarterback. See what we can get out of
But
Darnold.
then if you're gonna gamble on Darnold, have a good backup.
That's exactly they didn't have that.
We'll have a serviceable backup at least. And I'm sorry, PJ Walker is not.
No, they should have
backup.
kept Bridgewater and let Darnold and Bridgewater duel it out.
And Cam was, I'm not. Let's
Cam
not
was a
lie.
punt.
Cam was just a punt. You got from Cam what we all expected from Cam.
Yeah.
He can run. He can't throw the ball, and they lost.
A soundbite and a race.
Yeah.
And a nice hat.
But
They've been waiting for the end of the season since week 10.
But since week 3, they are the worst team in the NFL.
Yeah.
Oh, but they're not a decrepit franchise.
But I'm just saying. How many of Tom Brady's records would you like to talk about?
Quite a few, because I predicted at the start of the year
You did?
he'd have his best statistical season.
And he
That's
did.
borne out.
Guys, it's almost like having a great O-line, one of the best Titans of all time,
Imagine
and a
that.
great wideout.
Yeah.
3 of the best wide
And an
receivers in
extra
the league.
game.
Yeah. So
I still picked the
485.
pick. None of you did.
After a full off season to prepare, rather than not being able to
I
talk to you
foresaw
people.
this. I stuck him in my fantasy team.
485 completions, beating Drew Brees' record from 2016 with 471. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So I was saying that I would perhaps vote for him for MVP. This is the statistics. The average MVP has 14 wins, 4,428 passing yards, 39 touchdowns, and 3 game-winning drives. Brady this season, 13 wins, 5,316 passing yards, 43 touchdowns, and 5 game-winning drives. He is way ahead of the average MVP quarterback.
But Aaron Rodgers is still playing, and he's the number 1 seed.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's going to be Aaron Rodgers.
I'm not sure that's nailed on. I'm not sure. Like, everybody's talking like it's nailed on. I don't think
I
it's
think
nailed on.
that is nailed on.
Brady's only won MVP 3 times
Yeah.
in 20 years. That seems like it just gets distributed around for the sake of it to me.
Yeah,
I
just like his passing scheme with his 10-yard dump offs.
I think Rodgers will.
Is this where we talk about your bowel movements again with 10-yard dump offs?
It was in the script, I'll give you that.
Thank you very much. Tom Brady also has 300 or more passing yards for the 125th time in his career. only Drew Brees has more with 131 times.
With the team he has, he should be doing that.
True. I mean, let's be honest, he's on one of the best teams, but this is why he wanted to move, because New England weren't going to give him all of these weapons. We know they're great. They're going in, again, like we were saying earlier, they're going in on the upswing, like the Chiefs. And this is great for them. This is what they did last year. It could be boring to watch again.
If you take Tom Brady out of the Buccaneers are the Broncos.
Yes.
Yeah, it's true. Did anybody see that Brady refused to sit at the weekend?
Yeah, because Gronk needed to
Because
get paid.
Gronk needed another 25 yards to get $500,000 and another touchdown to get another $500,000.
He is mic'd up telling people, if I don't get this catch, I'm going to have to get a regular job.
So, yeah, Brady was basically told to take off his helmet and sit down, and he told Arians, no way, I'm going in the game, and went out and threw only to Gronk.
Did you see the clip as well of Brady being told that the Colts lost to the Jags?
Yeah, he was stunned.
Funniest thing ever.
Yeah. Ooh, I was stunned. But it shows you, all right, Arians, I don't doubt, is in charge, but Brady's basically co-managing this team. We know this, right?
Also, it's like, hang on, yeah, he's a good teammate.
Well,
I'd hate to have that Super Bowl ring I look at
Yeah.
to understand if the decision worked or not.
but Gronk was the leading receiver in this game, which tells you everything you need to know. 7 receptions for 137 yards.
And how many receptions did he need?
7.
and he needed 90 yards. So it's just madness. He earned him $1 million by basically not coming out of the game. So I enjoyed it. And they put Blaine Gabbert in for 2 kneel downs, effectively. Absolutely nothing. Right. Tampa Bay going to be one of the favourites for me. Absolutely, definitely nailed on. Before we move on,
Just cursed it.
Mike Evans, where is he when compared to Adams of the Green Bay Bucks? Which one of them is better?
I think Adams probably just.
Yeah, I don't think there's much in it.
But I've been a big fan of Mike Evans for years. I still.
Well, he
think
doesn't
he's-
often get because we talk about Adams, Hopkins, usually the top 2.
Yeah,
and
but
I
it's
think
because
Mike
he's
Evans
got
is
Godwin and he's got
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
Brown, Gronk. There's another. What's the other tight end? Hunter Henry,
Howard.
So
yeah.
there's just
Fewer targets.
fewer targets, but
The
Mike
talent,
Evans,
for me, he's
Yeah.
right up there. At the top.
amazing.
Yeah.
absolutely.
I know it's not a controversial discussion point. It's just his name very rarely comes up these days with the other 2. And I just thought,
I managed to pick him up in fantasy every time in the 4th or 5th round, and it blows my mind. He's a top 5 wideout.
Whenever we do wide out power rankings, which we do every so often, he's always in the top 5.
as he should be.
There's probably
Keenan Allen, he's in that mix. I think.
I think he's just unlucky that I think Adams and Hopkins are just that much better.
And Cup and Debo, it's building up.
I'd rather
isn't
have
it?
Evans than Debo.
Yeah,
I don't know about that.
As a pure
Debo-
wide receiver,
As
yeah.
a pure wide receiver, I think
Absolutely.
Evans is better, but I think as a offensive
weapon.
Debo's brilliant.
Right, 2 teams from the NFC East who are in the playoffs are the Cowboys and the Eagles, and they met in Week 18. It did not go well for Philly as they lost 51-26 against Dallas. Dak Prescott now has the lead of touchdowns for Cowboys quarterbacks. Overtook Romo. Did he throw 5 touchdowns in this game,
5,
Prescott?
yeah,
5. Is it 37, I think, was the record he broke, wasn't it?
Yes, I believe so.
So, again, it's another team that have been...
Oh, no, he's got 30.
He's got 37. It's another team that's been a little bit hit and miss, and there's talk about, okay, well, now that they seem to be firing again. More interesting than that is the fact that they are 6-0 against the NFC East and 6-5 against everyone else.
The NFC East is awful.
Yeah, but that's what I mean.
Dumpster fire.
But look at what they do against everyone else, and they're 500.
Yeah.
They're not great.
No, I know.
I'm not convinced, and
It's because their defense is good and their offense should be good,
Yeah.
and it thinks it's good, but it's not.
Gary hit the nail.
I mean,
on the head.
anybody could beat the Giants.
Yeah, I mean the Giants and the football team, that's 4 wins.
yeah.
And actually, they beat the Eagles earlier.
Can we stop calling them the fucking football team? I really
Oh,
hate
it-
that
well, that's-
fucking
well,
name.
it's
Washington
their fucking-
Manatee Vaginas.
And on the third
I know
of
it is their
February.
name. I'm not disputing that. John,
Garrett,
but it's
on the
just-
3rd of February, we can stop calling
Yeah.
it.
man, it does my head in.
But
Such a
as
shit
well,
name.
this was the Eagles' second line, so this tells us nothing.
I really hope they come out with a ridiculous name.
Oh, they will.
Just something real.
Well, apparently it's going to be
Admirals.
admirals or commanders. They're the two.
They can
apparently.
command anything.
They've got the shirt with the little like general stars.
They
haven't
should
they?
try starting
Admiral
by
stars.
commanding new things in their stadiums, just safety rails, so that Jalen Hurts
They
doesn't
should,
get caught.
they should start by demanding or commanding the
Let-
owner to sell up.
Let's say
The average attendance at Washington was lower than it was at Jacksonville.
Wow. Let's save them for a minute's time. Philly hasn't beaten a team over 500 this season, and yet they're in the playoffs. Now, that's taking advantage of your schedule, but doesn't give you a lot of hope to hang your hat on.
I believe they play in the NFC East.
Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah.
So they win 4 games, just turning up.
And the Eagles, this was the most rushing yards ever by an Eagles team since 1950.
Yeah, because they haven't got anyone to
Because they
pass
have,
the ball.
well, maybe. Or because their quarterback is a really good runner. Just, throwing that out there.
They've got no
Minshew
one.
played.
Minshew played most of this game.
He's not a bad runner.
No, I'd give you that. He's not terrible. He was five attempts for 10 yards.
I don't want to talk about this game.
No,
Really?
okay, no, nobody really wants to talk about this game. But Devonta Smith took the rookie receiving record for the Eagles. That's
pretty,
worth talking about.
That's
he
pretty
was
good considering that's Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah. And something that I mentioned the other week, I want to bring up again. Greg Zuerlein now leads the NFL in missed kicks with 12 between PATs and field goals, and that is going to come back to bite them. Because he's been brilliant in the past, but not for them.
Also, when you're playing the Niners, you're going to need to get field goals. I think.
Yeah, I agree. And I just think that might come back and bite them. Right. The NFC also had 2 teams who didn't make the playoffs, and they faced off in week 18. What the fuck, beating the Giants 22-7. Gettleman is gone. Joe Judge must follow.
I think he's going to
Not
stay.
good. It's going to stay.
And it's the wrong decision, but there's a shock. The last time, what the fuck, swept the Giants, anyone?
1990.
Oh, no. It'd be more recently than that. RG3.
probably.
2013.
Any more takers?
Every year for the past 10 years.
Wouldn't it be amazing if that was the actual answer? No. I've lost it here. Sorry, but yeah,
Jeez,
I'll find it
half-baked
for you. I'll
research.
find it for you. Yeah, it is half-baked
Half-baked
research.
research.
It's because I was staring at another fact. But it's the first time since I think 2002 that you've been swept by them. So
To be fair, we'd be swept by most teams. I don't want to talk too much, but because my teams suck. But there's just... You can see the Jags and the Lions have a plan, and there's a potential of an upswing. There's nothing at the Giants. There's nothing.
I mean, everyone's laughed about it, but going for a quarterback sneak on 3rd and 9 on your own goal line.
Should be sackable. Should be sackable.
I agree.
The owner should come down onto the
Yeah.
pitch.
Misconduct.
Yeah.
Right there.
Get out.
Yeah.
You should be saying.
Breach of
Because
trust.
your point around, at least like the Lions and the Jags, you can see, they're trying.
Yeah.
Like, even Urban Meyer tried to win a game. He was pretty bad at it.
He could grind one out.
Yeah.
I love the way this. I love the way they toyed with you mid-season. They just played with you like a cat with a mouse. Letting it get away. Like, we're going to win 3 games. Make you believe. Oh my word, no.
But it's like,
shoddy.
you go for a quarterback sneak there, it just shows you've got no confidence. What does that say to your players?
9.
What does that say to the players? I've got absolutely no confidence in you being able to actually execute a play. So fuck it. We'll just do a quarterback sneak and then we're just going to punt it again and see what happens.
I mean,
You're
It's
right.
more,
It's
it's more,
sackable.
it's more likely that they're going to muff the punt than you're going to do anything of any worth.
Yeah.
The thing that everything Daniel Jones was a 6th overall pick. You'd expect good results. Saquon Barkley has been injured, and I'm not going to hold anything against him on that.
I would hold lots against him. I don't think he's not delivering.
The O-line.
He's gone. He's gone.
The
Here
thing
he is. He's up.
We're giving Kenny Golladay $72 million.
I've been told
for no touchdowns.
I've been told numerous times you've got a great receiving core.
You have been told.
We
that.
have got a good receiving
No
core.
one to throw to them is the problem. Gary says they're shit. Go on, John.
Kyle Rudolph and Evan Engram are good tight ends.
Kyle Rudolph was a good tight end before he got old.
Evan Ingram has never shown that. He's been
Carl
a
Rudolph is a
disappointment.
good tight
Carl-
end.
John was excited that Carl Rudolph was going to
Ingram
replace Evan Ingram.
is a good tight end when he's fit.
Evan Ingram just needs to leave. There's talent. He just needs to be out of.
No, I
New
agree.
York.
He's basically another version of Jordan Reed.
Eric
Yeah.
Ebron.
Yeah, and that's fine.
So when are we having the Evan Engram participation
Saquon,
award?
11 attempts for 30 yards. That's similar to Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, but at least run it on 3rd and 9.
Yeah.
If you don't want to pass it, Just give it to
We know the Giants are toilet. We know the Giants are toilet, but not as toilet as they have been. The Giants have missed the playoffs in 5 straight seasons, which is their longest streak since 1964 to 1980. I mean, that's 16 years of bullshit.
I think there's a couple more to come.
And do you know what happened then? We brought in Bill Parcells, who came with an identity. And what have we done now? We've brought in the guy from the Patriots.
A guy from the Patriots.
A guy.
Yeah.
Not
I mean,
even
the guy.
guy.
I just...
Definitely not the guy.
a guy.
Do you remember why we got rid of our last GM?
No.
It was because he caught the flack for Eli Manning being dropped.
Oh, yes.
So they fired the GM, and he should have been fired before because the team was on the way down.
It was on the way down, yeah.
It was on the way down. But they brought in Gettleman. Gettleman has tied his boat to Jones, and he deserves to be fired.
I assume Jones fumbled it.
Well, yeah.
We let him retire.
Yeah.
We let him leave with a clean record. We give him an honourable
was
discharge. The man was discharged.
He was on the
But it means you don't have
pitch.
to pay him.
He was on the
Assuming
pitch
from
before
a
the
manatee's
game.
vagina.
He was on the pitch before the game with
Yeah.
his family
Yeah.
taking photos as if, like, oh, it's fine, done my best. It's a fucking disgrace.
It is a disgrace.
And actually, it's really disheartening.
Do you want to know how much of a disgrace? Because here's the one. This one sums up your season beautifully. I kept this one back. The Giants are the first team since 2002 to score 10 or fewer points in the first half of every single game in a season. And and you've been turning up at my house for the second half of a lot of these games. And like Gary said, a couple of these games, suddenly the Giants were all right. But those first halves, mate, you were doing yourself a favour by not watching them because they were toilet.
Why is he still the coach? That's the stat. Why is he still there? Why is it a Giants may keep judge?
It shouldn't be. It should be judges fucked off.
He should be publicly flogged in the car park at
I need a
MetLife.
separate Giants podcast.
when Gettleman was brought in, there was, and before him, they've only ever interviewed one outside appointment.
Yeah.
This time, everyone is coming in. It's all outside appointments.
Genuinely, and John told me off for this last week when he said, "Don't sympathise with my terrible franchise I have to support." I don't know what else to do because the frustration on your faces every
I
week
think it's
is
really funny. I think you. We've been through it.
No, but this,
I know
no, you haven't been through this because it's different. You were on a downslide. You went from playing in a fucking Super Bowl to having a bad year to playing in a fucking Super Bowl. 10 years ago, we won the Super Bowl. We've sucked dick for 10 years. I supported the Giants watching them win the Super Bowl to just watch them shit the bed year after year after year after year. It's
nice
not
photo.
the same as a Niners fan.
Of course it is.
No, it's not. It's completely fucking different.
We were bad when we were bad.
how much would you
Oh,
have
you
to
had
charge
CJ
for
Beathard.
shitting the bed and sucking dick at the same time? I would imagine quite a lot.
Your bad season was having beat Harden.
Right.
It wasn't one bad season.
Let's draw
You
this.
had Hoyer and Beat Hard.
And you had a shitload of injuries and an offensive-minded genius coach.
You also had Chip Kelly for a year.
Yeah.
Let's draw this slightly round. Who would you take for next season on any team, your team, any team, Gibson or Barkley?
Gibson.
Barkley.
Gibson all day.
Gibson
Put Barkley in a fucking
You put-
non-corrupt
You
franchise.
swap the O lines. Without Andrew Thomas, that O line is a sieve.
But I'm not asking you on your team. On any team,
I
which
say-
of the two is better?
If you have a similar O line, Barkley.
No,
Barkley is a better running back.
Barkley's legs are done. I don't
this
think Barkley's ever going to be the same player.
That hasn't really calmed the fire the way I thought it
No,
might.
It's the
I-
same
I-
argument as Garoppolo, isn't it? On his day, Garoppolo's brilliant, but he's too brittle.
But
Yeah,
I
it is.
don't think
Barkley's
I
been
don't think
too
you're
injured.
I don't think you're ever going to see that Barkley that you picked in the draft again.
I agree.
Yeah,
You
I
saw it
agree.
with Gurley. You've
It's like
seen it with so many of them.
McCaffrey. McCaffrey's, I think, going down
How
the same
often-
road.
You might see a couple of years. You might start to see, after he's been rested a lot and he's not used as much. You might see him come back a bit, but
That's why we've
you
not
need him to be a volume back, and he's not a volume back.
Why
So
we've
what?
not- it's
He's
the
not
same
worth
reason-
the money.
Same reason why we've not seen Todd Gurley back in the league. Because he can't be trusted in terms of injuries.
This is something where Barkley has been coming back from an injury into the last 2 seasons. And coming back from a pretty nasty injury.
Oh,
into
I
last
don't deny
season.
that, yeah.
Coming back to an injury this season.
I think
If he has a good off-season, I'd be interested to see what happens. But at the same time, you're putting a shiny coating on shit.
Also, he's a really talented catching back. And once again, you can't trust the bloke under centre. So it's, there's no point glittering a turd. The whole organisation is toxic, and the most important position is just wrong.
And even the social
I
media.
love the fact me and Griff just can't stop laughing.
I love what the Giants have done this year as a franchise, where they've not paid any attention to the utter shit they've been putting out every week, and just going, look, here's let me finish. Michael Strahan got his fucking name up and the
Ring of Honor.
There you go. Fucking they've been shitting out of Ring of Honor.
Right, I'm gonna.
They've had Eli Manning, Michael Strahan. They've just been going on past glory. Sort out what's on the pitch.
Look at the positives. You must have loads of cap space to really move this
No,
forward.
no. 2 million. He knows that. He's winding you up. Right, I'm taking this forward. The Packers had the NFC number 1 seed sewn up ahead of Sunday's game against the Lions. But the starters did play, and they did lose as Detroit put up a 37-30 victory to end their year, meaning they couldn't take the number 1 spot, but showing that at least Dan Campbell has this team playing for him. As we said, they must be the most celebrated 3-win team of all time, but they do have 3 wins.
John just broke his knuckle.
I'm trying to plough through that.
I mean, to be fair, the Giants have 4 wins, and I've just lost my patience.
I know.
I'm wound up.
I'll be honest. I mean, that's a fair point. I'd be much more heartened if I was a Lions support than I was Giants.
The Lions have won 3 of the final 6 after starting 0-10-1, but at least they look like Paul said, like they've got a plan and they've got a coach
and they've got some passion as
and
well.
They've got a quarterback.
Yeah,
well, yeah. I mean, he'd be an upgrade on Daniel Jones.
He would get into half the teams in the league.
It seems likely. I think he probably would.
It's been the funniest 5 minutes of the podcast. Look, you're going to get payback in the playoffs when you're sitting there watching us all suffer, aren't you?
No. Do you remember?
Like, even Chase has got a team in the playoffs this year.
God, how terrible it would be to watch my team in the playoffs. God, I'd be so mad.
So, Amon-Ra St. Brown, leading rookie receiver for the Lions all time.
More importantly, his
Beat
dad
Calvin
was rocking
Jones.
an awesome 2-team jersey.
Was he?
Didn't he only play 4 games?
It was fucking brilliant.
Yeah,
I didn't see that.
It was both a Lions and a Packers jersey. It was gorgeous.
Didn't he only turn up in like 4 games though?
Don't forget that he was the only thing they can throw to.
He's played in all the matches, I think.
He's been really good.
I'd say the last 6 weeks he's probably gone up a
Since
level.
DeAndre Swift was injured,
Yeah.
he became much a bigger part of their passing offense. But even before that, he was doing okay.
How many yards has he got?
Oh, about 800.
800-ish,
Well, I
796.
retract my-
912.
Oh, well, there you go.
That's not a bad season at all.
The Packers became the first team in NFL history to have 13 wins in 3 consecutive seasons. That's why LaFleur should be a candidate for Coach of the Year, because no one's ever done that. That's really impressive. Yeah.
Well, isn't he?
It's really impressive. They are so solid as a franchise, even with all the Rodgers talk.
They've won 13 games for 3 years and won nothing off the back of it.
Well, they'll lose in the championship game. We all know that. Dunk's already having like hot sweats about it.
I don't know what.
I mean,
At least I've got 4 weeks to calm down now.
You consider how this season started as well. Like they were so insipid in game 1.
Yeah.
And, as well.
But that was just Rodgers being putrid because he didn't want to play.
I know, and he also missed games because of his
He lied about COVID.
because his COVID thing. I mean, but as well, he looks really like he wants to, win and tell him to fuck off, or just.
No, he's there. He's there for the long haul.
Now you just think he just wants to win. Because
it's the last dance stuff they were sharing on social media at the start of the season, wasn't it?
Him and Adam. Dance.
The Last Dance, the NBA thing, not Save the Last Dance. I don't watch that. You had the Last Dance thing that him and Adams were sharing, which I thought was, and you could see that this meant they were trying to make this mean more.
Don't be shocked if they did win it if he just retired.
I wouldn't be shocked if he just. I wouldn't be
I
shocked
think
by
it's more
anything he does
likely
now.
that he'll retire than there is him to go to another team.
Yeah, I agree.
I can't see him going to the Broncos. He's 38. What's he going to achieve?
Manning did
Another
right.
Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Devontae Adams passed whose record for the most receiving yards by a Green Bay Packers receiver?
Donald Driver.
No.
It wasn't Cobb. It was someone
No.
else.
Greg Jennings.
It wasn't Cobb. It wasn't Greg Jennings. It was the other really good receiver they had all in them.
Sterling Sharp.
Jordy Nelson.
Jordy Nelson, absolutely. 2014. And, it took him an extra game, obviously. But, rightly, he has the record. He is their best wide receiver, probably that they've ever had, I would say. Like, better than all the ones you've just named.
Consistently, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There's not much else you can say. We knew the Lions were what this record was going to show, but
2 good trick.
The trick plays.
Yeah.
Tom Kennedy and Jack Fox both threw for yards. Yeah.
They've been doing it all year.
Well, they had gone for the third most fourth down attempts and converted percentage-ly, they converted the most because they just tried everything. They just didn't
I'll
get
tell
it.
you what, when you've got a bad O-line, if you just piss around with the ball a little bit more in the backfield, it buys you a little bit more time, doesn't it?
It's true.
Are they still a bit dumb not for going for the first overall pick, though?
No, because there's no. Who's the standout? Who's the awesome nailed on number one?
There isn't one.
Is it more like was it 2013 when it was like Luke Jokel and Fisher?
Yeah.
When there was just it was like, well, Gary's going number 4 and Paul's the first quarterback off the board.
The Jags are picking 1, so I think that throws a bit of a span and it works. There are 1 of 3 players I think are going number 1. 2 of them are pass rushers and 1's an offensive tackle. Evan Neal out of Alabama, Aiden Hutchinson or Thibodeau out of Oregon, the 2 pass rushers. So
and that'd be great for the Lions because they could do with just something. Because Jared Goff is going to be there next year and they're going to be okay under centre with him. So it's actually 2 teams that don't need to pick quarterbacks at the top of the draft and they're going to improve their defences. We need to bring this to a close. So, and finally, the ultimate sack race, Sackarama, the swinging sack of doom game. Bears 17, Vikings 31, Zimmer gone, Nagy gone, no one gives a flying butt fuck.
both GMs gone as well.
Both GMs out the window. This was just a dumpster fire of a game where it was like a house clearance. Like, let's chuck everything in the yard, set it on fire. It's done. There's not much you can do other than quickly assess these 2 coaches over their tenures. So Mike Zimmer, 8 years, 3 playoff appearances, 2 division titles, and
One hot girlfriend.
One hot girlfriend, an NFC Championship game.
Yep.
And
with Case Keenum,
what you would describe as a steady and consistent ship. That's fair.
Yeah.
I think it was time for him to go, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, would you take him to the Giants?
I don't think he'll get a head coaching gig.
I don't think
he'll
he
rock
will
up as
either,
a defensive
But
coordinator.
would you take him if he wanted it?
The Giants?
Yeah.
I'd take literally anything other than what we have right now.
I think.
Yes, if that's
I think Jim is right.
Anything.
I think Jim is right. I don't think he necessarily is even looking for a head coaching role straight away.
It should be like Dan Quinn. Go
and earn your money doing half a job.
I think Bin is he's about 68. He might just fucking retire.
Yeah, exactly.
With his hot girlfriend.
He's got better things to do.
I think, retire and fuck. I think he's what could he be doing?
Living the dream.
You can see why we attract the biggest sponsors.
Exactly.
Matt Nagy, 4 years, 2 playoff appearances, and a winning
coach of the year.
A coach of the year and a winning record.
And once he got rid of Mr. Biscuit,
Harshly treated. Ruined the number 1 pick.
Is it because the product on the field just didn't look right?
I think Chicago's very hard to please.
That's what I'm getting at. So it just didn't look right.
he was 1 kick away from progressing. Their playoff.
The Cody Parkey double doink.
Yeah.
I think it's just Chicago, isn't it? They're never happy. It's windy. It's cold.
I don't know. Last year I was all behind them getting through. I made a bold call that they'll get to the playoffs, and you all ripped the shit out of me for the rest of the season. So they eventually did, but they scraped through into the playoffs. I think there has been talent on the team in certain places. I don't think it's been the best talent, but I don't think he's made enough of it. And absolutely, Ryan Pace should have been sacked because,
I'm going to assume you've just seen what I've just seen, John, which is a text message saying Joe Judge sacked ? So we're all going to be racing towards our updates now.
Ian Rappaport saying Giants managers met with Joe Judge for 2 days before making a decision to move on. A full house cleaning at your Giants team has gone. So after that massive rant,
I've just simple smiled for the first time in half an hour.
That is the angriest I've ever seen.
It is, yeah.
I'm so glad we got that recorded.
And I'm so glad that John made the executive production decision to talk about the coaching vacancies in a separate podcast, because now we get to include the Giants. They're going to be right near the bottom of the list of good franchises to take over. Yeah. Unfortunately, copyright means you can't play everything else.
I played 5 seconds and you can fill in the blanks.
Woohoo! The only thing really of note...
Allegedly, woohoo.
The only thing really from note from this game, Peterson had his first pick of the season, meaning he's had an interception in like 14 straight years. And Justin Jefferson passed 1,600 yards for the season.
He beat Randy Moss's record, though.
Randy Moss's record, which is mightily impressive. And I'm glad that that's it for those two teams and that they've cleaned house because they've become stale. Even if I liked Zimmer, they've become stale.
Yeah,
These two look so happy.
What you're seeing at Minnesota is what you're also seeing at Seattle. I think the head coach has been there too long. I think Minnesota have made the right call. I think Seattle, Cowell deserves to go out when he wants to, I guess, because he's, but I think a sensible person probably would have gone.
Agreed.
Not my favourite thing. Just got another message saying Freddie Kitchens promoted.
I'll find the shotgun.
Oh.
Right. In that case, due to the executive decision, I'm going to wrap up this extremely long podcast and direct you to find the Super Wildcard Weekend preview podcast, which will include our power rankings. Over to you, John.